next panel will be on IP rights. Speaking of NFTs, we'll check off on IP rights right now. Intellectual property is the engine of the modern economy, yet managing licensing and verifying ownership of everything from music to software is a complex, opaque, and often adversarial process. This panel explores how blockchain technology is fundamentally reforming the creator economy. So welcome to the revolution of IP rights on chain. By leveraging NFTs and distributing ledger technology, creators can establish permanent, verifiable, and globally accessible records of ownership for their intellectual property. Our experts will discuss how smart contracts can automate the entire IP lifecycle, from fractionalized ownership of a patent to the instant and automatic distribution of royalties every time an asset is used. We'll cover the legal and technical frameworks required to build trust and transparency, giving creators unprecedented control and ensuring that the value they create flows directly back to them. And this conversation will be led by Michael Finkelstein of Connect as our moderator. So please welcome Michael as we explore IP rights, and he did mention why now and how artificial intelligence will enter the fray. So Michael, take it away.
Thank you.
A second.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon for the very last but interesting and powerful panel. Without further ado, let's start with a short round of introductions. Michael.
Great to see everyone. Fun to be the last panel, so thanks for sticking around. I'm Michael Finkelstein, CEO and co-founder of a company called Kinetic. Kinetic is simply building IP infrastructure for the future of digital creativity. A lot of buzzwords there, but what does that actually mean? Think about a world where any piece of media, any image, any audio, any video starts somewhere, which it does today, that creates attribution, that creates ownership, that creates provenance, that ends up on-chain, on a blockchain. We'll talk about why, I'm sure, in a minute. And then think about a world where you can track real-time anywhere that content goes, in whole or in part. And the notion of building an IP graph for every piece of content on chain, that's what Kinetic does.
Thank you. Thomas, I know you don't need an introduction, but feel free to say a couple of words about yourself.
Thomas Nägele, I have the honor of being the president of the beloved association organizing this event, and I'm also a lawyer, and I wrote my PhD about tokenization, and obviously I also covered IP rights in my PhD, and also it's covered in the Liechtenstein Blockchain Act. So I'm happy to be here and talk about IP, because if people think of RWAs, and I touched that briefly on my first panel, I think IP really there we could push the needle.
Amazing. And then Heinz, over to you.
Yeah, now it's right. It's Office for Digital Innovation, not ESMA. Working and adapting TVTG, Blockchain Act, and of course, IP rights are part of the tokenization. You can tokenize shares, bonds, commodities. Of course, you can tokenize IP rights.
Thank you. And myself, I'm Kinga. I'm board member at Women in Web3 Switzerland. So happy to see some ladies also in the audience. Please talk to me later. And I'm also strategic account manager at Genzio Media. All right, then let's get started. To set the scene, can you explain why IP rights on chain is such a game changer? Why do we need it, and why do we need it now?
Let me try to start with a very simple example. This morning, Peter Kirsten said on stage, Liechtenstein is the birthplace of crypto regulation. Imagine how cool it would be that you could actually just use that piece. The creator is Peter, right? But if Peter then, just after his panel, can simply register that and say, like, I created that phrase, the birthplace of crypto regulation. And if we make that very, very easy, I think we can do a lot of fun stuff with that. And Michael is obviously exploring a lot of these potentials. And from a regulatory perspective, I think we are quite clear, at least in Liechtenstein. But the potential is huge. And I think I defer to Michael to explore a little bit for us how big that really is. Because IP is global by nature, right? IP rights are global by nature. And we should solve it globally.
Well, as a little aside, I did read Thomas's dissertation or thesis.
You're the second person.
I know. And he didn't believe me when I said I did, and I showed him on our second call the dog ears of actually it. So, you know, I think IP, let's take our mind away from just thinking about something that gets posted. It powers everything, right? It powers everything we see, everything we buy, everything we consume. And, you know, I was listening to a lot of panels throughout the day, and there was talk around real-world assets. How do you certificate your car, and how do you use that as a collateral in your watch? And then even just in the last panel, how is the interaction between Europe and the US, and how are those frameworks evolving and the differences in laws? You know, copyright and IP is quite unique because none of those things actually affect it. IP by nature is global. Most of the copyright laws in the world are 90% the same. It's governed by the Paris Accord, the Berne Convention. And so the rights extended to anyone who owns intellectual property are very similar in the US and Canada and Liechtenstein and throughout Europe and Asia and what have you. That makes it quite unique. The second thing that makes it unique is it's digitally native. Just bear with me for nerding out for a second, but the minute that anyone in the world creates something original and publishes it to a permanent medium, they own that. They don't need to register it. They own that 70 years plus their natural life or whatever that may be. That creates an incredible environment for blockchain technology. Blockchain by its definition is cryptographically recording facts on an immutable ledger that the world can see. And so to me, I can think of no better use case than intellectual property, provenance, ownership, certification, living on blockchain. We'll talk about a lot of other fun stuff, but to me, that is the core and what drove me to start Kinetic.
Amazing. We will deep dive more into other use cases, but I also like to hear you, Heinz. What's your take here?
A kind of different approach than Michael. He's the expert here, the business expert. The market is huge, of course. To make it simple, of course, you can IP tokenize on the blockchain and make some codes, make some datas, as for instance, the European Union IPO does with trademarks and designs. 7 European countries are cooperating on this. They put off-chain IP rights to blockchain, on-chain IP rights, but it's only code, it's only data. It's not law. It's not law. So we have to combine it to make it lifeable. And copyright regulation is quite complicated. It's very complicated, in fact. To make it simple, easy, and lifeable, you have to combine code with law. And TVTG, Blockchain Act, provides exactly this. It's totally agnostic, as Thomas and Clara mentioned already several times. It's totally agnostic to shares, commodities, IP rights, and make it lifeable with enforceable law. That's crucial here in this field. You have to have a blockchain with providing laws and enforceable laws.
I'm just going to add one thing to the size of the market because, you know, I saw Peter this morning and he threw up some sizes of the market and esoteric assets and what have you. I mean, I've seen a bunch of stats. $6.6 trillion of American GDP is attributed to IP, $1.5 trillion in just copyright industries. Think about everything, every piece of media, every entertainment, every piece of technology, all of that underpinning it is intellectual property driven. So it drives, I would argue, the world's creativity, innovation, and economy.
I have a question maybe as a follow-up, because my example of Peter, I mean, the good thing is he has it on recording, he said it on stage, it was distributed live, so he can easily prove that he was the creator of it, so he doesn't need to register anything as you said, obviously. But which problem are we trying to solve here? Or is there any problem? Or is it like no one has to do anything? You said you don't have to register it, but you have to be able to prove that you were the creator. So which problem are we trying to? I'm a simple guy, right? Like I love simple examples. Michael, what problem do we try to solve?
I'm going to give you a simple example, which is what we were going to come back to, but we'll just fast forward to that. Attribution is not the problem, right? Creating a blockchain-based IP system allows for the solving of the following problem, which is, and I wrote about this a couple of years ago, if you think about intellectual property, it's going to move. And we're seeing that with AI, right? I mean, without any clairvoyance, AI has accelerated what I'm about to say. Pieces of it are going to move. It's going to act like an amoeba. And the reality is, there's no system in place to understand where that's going. And there are rights associated with that. There's revenues associated with that. And so we need infrastructure to allow for people to get opened up to where that content goes. And then, if their rights are being infringed, or if they just want to see the data behind it, there's a blockchain-based ledger that creates immutability and certification of rights. And so that, to me, the big problem is the next 15 years, I truly believe, are going to be what privacy and data were to the last 15, IP. And so understanding what the next generation of monetization is and how anyone who creates anything is going to get remuneration, I think is the problem we're solving.
And just if you look at how it is now, for example, if you're creating a piece like music, right? How that is actually how you get to your royalties, how you get to your money. It's actually in every country you have collective companies who are actually then enforcing your rights. They go to conferences and ask you if you pay for the licenses, right? And then they enforce that. So it is actually quite a burdensome thing to do. It's very inefficient, right? And obviously it's not perfect because you have to go really event to event to see where they play at in which company. It's very, very inefficient.
Well, and this is where we get into, and I saw, we talked about this briefly, the keynote from Animoca this afternoon.
Yatsu, yeah.
You know, and it was incredible because the future of that is through agentic AI agents. And so think of a world where those agents, we're doing some of this, are picking up fragments of IP usage. And IP could be anything. It could be driving a product sale. It could be what have you. And they're automatically routing payments and routing credit and routing source. He said it immediately in this conversation. So thank you for that, by the way. But you know, because it's our belief as well, that entire system is going to happen. And to me, to us, our vision is that all starts with two key things: who owns what and where that's happening. And that is part of the infrastructure we're building.
But you have different, as a piece of music, which can be streamed, of course, everywhere. We have in Germany Gemma, in Austria AKM, which then are responsible for the royalties and licenses. And I think you can solve it a lot better with your IP tokenization on a blockchain because you have then the timestamp and the proof of it, and you can combine it with a smart contract for the licensing and royalties. Is right?
I think so, and I think, you know, not only that, but the transparency of the blockchain. People will know, and they'll be able to see licenses, use rights, credit rights, and all of this will live on a ledger that the world can see. And I use this visual, it will be an IP graph.
Do I get more as a creator with your system?
No, not necessarily. But look, we are not focused on the future monetization schema because that is the great unknown, and I'm not smart enough to figure that out. There will be future monetization, right? And you're starting to see it already with people paying for licensing, for data usage, and what have you. We're building the infrastructure to enable that. I don't know where that's going to come from, and I would say, you know, coming back to the same point, we are enabling the system to say, this person made this here, is the owner of this, and they should be remunerated, or they should be given credit, or they have certain rights attributed to them, whatever in 5 or 10 years that monetization looks like.
That's very amazing. And yeah, you mentioned already a few use cases, so most of them quite obvious, like music royalties, etc. is there any bit, more strange to less obvious use case that you would like to briefly talk about?
Sure. No, I mean, we're broadly focused on the use case of copyrights, right? And copyrights are one of the three pillars of intellectual property, along with patents and trademarks, and I guess there's a fourth with trade secrets. We are focused on long-form video, short-form video, photography, images. You could be an NFT artist, and you have no idea where your NFT is going. Now you can. And so I think of the world of media and under copyrights. I think we're paying keen attention to name, image, and likeness. I think name, image, and likeness, NIL, for those of you that don't know, is taking the world by storm a little bit in college athletics and some other things. But anything that deals with kind of that realm, I think is ripe for the ability to tokenize and use blockchain, in my opinion, the way it's meant to be used.
I think what is worth, to your point, what is not so obvious is when we talk about AI at the moment, right? So for example, if I have my standard, I'm a lawyer, so my standard contract, right? My standard employment contract I use for a lot of clients, right? That's my template, right? And then I don't know how, but someone is putting that on an AI. It's learning from my template, right? And then another lawyer in Liechtenstein asked, "Oh, give me a very good employment contract and focus on this and that." And it takes my template, right? And then uses it and gives him the answer. Should I be remunerated for that? And how? It's impossible at the moment to do that. You don't know where it is coming from. You don't know. You're not able to trace it. That there are a lot of challenges I think we have to solve in that space.
Wouldn't it be cool if you could figure out if an LLM used your content? I'm just saying, wouldn't it be cool if that were the case?
Then
who knows, maybe someone's working on that in the future.
Yeah, for the last, I don't know how many years, people are telling me lawyers are going to be out of business. And I think for a huge part of our business model, that's true, right? But I think creators should be paid for the work, right?
Well, I think they should be paid, but I also think equally important, Thomas, is the data associated with what's happening. Right? If you think about you're a creator on TikTok and you're charging a brand $1,000, you're charging that based on the post's first derivative you see on TikTok. This many likes, this many views, what have you. If it spreads, you should be able to own and understand that data for your well-being. And so yes, I think people should get paid for their use, but I also think they should have the ability to see that data and how it's maneuvering throughout the web today, and then in the future it's going to be lights out.
Yeah, and the approach with
but then it would help to have it on a official authority blockchain, the IP rights, because you have an NFT and you have to deliver the prima facie evidence for this, and it's international. It doesn't make a lot of sense that it can be proved in Liechtenstein only. It has to be proved in the US, in China, in Asia as well. And the courts have to accept this evidence of proof, which would be on the blockchain in Liechtenstein.
Is then Liechtenstein working on such a system?
Is that something they're working on?
Yeah, that would be a solution, to deliver with the TBTs, it's possible already, of course. Because you have the property issue solved and the civil rights issue. Of course, you have to work on the copyrights, maybe ordinance or blockchain can be delivered.
Well, I'll say something about that. You know, Thomas and I met 3 years ago at something called Satoshi Roundtable, and
Thank you, Bruce.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and the way it works is you host a little side, panels and what have you. And I hosted something on IP tokenization. No one cared. I mean, no one cared. Thomas showed up, and actually some folks from the Emirates showed up. We had a great conversation. No one cared. Today, IP is on the front page of Wall Street Journal, Le Monde, FT, what have you. It is mainstream, it is timely, and it is crucial. Because at the end of the day, it is, and I think Clara said this even earlier, or someone else from the previous panel, it is geopolitical, right? It is the way citizens of places actually get protected, they make things, they drive creativity, and so IP is on the top minds of almost everyone you talk to today, and it's great, right, for us when no one really cared about it 3 years ago. And so I think it's timely for people to dive into innovation and come up with some really clever things that can advance IP rights.
Great. I would like to briefly touch upon the legal and regulatory aspect. So we are in Liechtenstein. Can we talk about TVTG framework as well as MICA? How is it now? Where do you still see some gaps, and what should be changed?
I think what people have to understand is that was it addressed to me,
yes,
or
to
okay,
both
maybe
of
I
you.
start
No,
and then you
not
can
me.
answer.
You could start. Yeah.
Not you. You're not the lawyer.
Yeah.
No, so I think Mika is focusing on the regulatory part. So regulating service providers, you can get licenses, is also regulating issuance of token, right? So if you issue a token, we have to have a look at if it falls under Mika or not. But it's not actually solving it's not regulating, and it's not talking about the civil law part of it. So how actually IP rights are treated from a civil law perspective, who owns what, how you are becoming the creator of something. These kind of questions, they're not solved under MiCA. And Liechtenstein with the TVTG, so this blockchain act, actually allows for tokenization of assets. And the way how the Liechtenstein Blockchain Act is allowing for that is it allows you to represent rights in a token. And the idea is if you then transfer that token, also the represented right is transferred. And that is actually allowing for this legal certainty you need to be able to transfer rights on chain. And Liechtenstein has a very comprehensive framework for that, and that's why you have to differentiate between the supervisory part, regulating service providers, what they do, how they're allowed to do it, how they custody these tokens, how they issue the tokens, maybe how they transfer it. But on the other hand, you have to have a framework allowing for tokenization. So if I am the creator and I have a token and I let that token represent the ownership right, how can I actually transfer the rights represented within it? And I think we have the legal basis for it. I don't know, you briefly touched on copyright laws. So the token part is solved, I think, to the broad part of it, but the copyright part is a good question.
Yeah, I agree that MiCA is not an issue here. It's not a topic, it's a financial market regulation. Maybe for clarification, it would be sensible to adapt the TVTG a little bit on copyrights and that tokens can represent copyrights. It's not a must-have, but it would be sensible. But of course, on the copyright side, it makes sense to elaborate what's needed and what's clear to make it internationally enforceable. And to have a legal basis on this one. I think that's needed.
People are always talking about RWAs. As you said, we're talking about tokenizing shares, we're talking about but like IP rights, like the opportunity is huge. I said it before, I'm not really patient, like I have to work on that. But like for years I thought, like, why is that not happening, right? What do we need? Is it really like the small details in the copyright laws? Is it finding a good entrepreneur providing for it, or what's missing?
It's not that anymore, you know. I'm just kidding. To me, what's missing is someone to take the leadership mantle here, right? The tech is now there. I see it. We are, I would argue, the pioneer in IP tokenization, and we are approaching 200,000 copyrights on chain, which I think dwarfs anyone else out there. And the digital nature of copyright, the ability to actually timestamp in a nanosecond when something gets published and drive that to a ledger under copyright law creates copyright. Right? And so we have at Kinetic solved that. The next step of that is to create a certification mechanism that you can just certify that this actually occurred at this timestamp, what have you, and that's all you need, right? I can certify something in Liechtenstein and go to Germany, and I'm one leg up from arguing without that certification, right? I mean, I am one leg up. Because I can go to a German court if I'm a German citizen and say, hey, I made this here, what have you, and I need to prove that. I am one further step ahead if I have a certification that I can print out from somewhere that says, this is actually a valid transaction. I think that is a monster first step. And I'm hoping that comes to fruition at some point.
Great. We have only a couple of minutes left, but I would also like to give a chance to our audience to ask questions. We have time probably for one. Is there anyone who would like to ask our panelists specific question, please?
Great. Yeah, great question.
Maybe
Thank you.
rephrase it, yeah, so the audience.
Do you want me to answer it?
No, yeah, no, you can answer it, but rephrase it so people understand, because they did not hear
sorry.
it.
The question was around, is there, you used the word, I think, counterculture, but the notion that over the past, musicians and artists haven't been paid rightful revenues and have had their work stolen and some other things that has happened and will continue to happen. I think when I think about moving what traditionally has been moving music or art in the NFT world on chain, it's the actual media. What I'm talking about is the ownership certificates, right? The notion as a music artist or as an NFT artist or a photographer to be able to certificate your ownership on chain, I think is the evolution. And I think the world, I'm hoping it's changing, right? So Spotify for the first time 3 months ago paid more to unsigned artists than signed artists. And so the notion of a combination of things, my hope is that changes. And I think the certification mechanism is a real step forward, right? If I'm a music artist and I'm getting ripped off, there are two things I don't have the ability to do right now very easily. One, to know if I'm getting ripped off or if my music's being used somewhere else. And by the way, I've talked to a lot of music artists that don't mind their music getting played somewhere else. They want to know about it, but they don't mind it because it's promotion or what have you. But regardless, they have no ability to see that. It's very reactive. One of the things we're trying to do is make that proactive. And then the second thing is, if there is a mechanism for claiming of revenues or some sort of recourse, there's no mechanism for them to actually provide some sort of certificate to say, actually, here's my certificate of ownership, just like there is on a home or what have you. So that's what my hope is, and a big part of our vision to help bring those infrastructure tools to bear. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
None, actually. Zero.
Maybe to add shortly, Spotify will not pay more, I think, with this system, or Deezer, but you can secure that all streaming providing systems will pay you and will get the license to the artist. That's the main difference to the system now.
I think, so to answer your question, sorry, it was hard to hear. No, we have not seen any. In fact, we've seen a total embrace, not only from the certification standpoint, but truly the data standpoint. The ability for a musician to know that their content got reshared on Twitter, I know we're out of time, or in a Reddit board or what have you, in a geographic place or a demographic is incredibly valuable to them. And that's part of what we're building. Thank you. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we have to wrap up. Any final words, one sentence, each of you, what do you want our audience to go from this panel with?
Time to have a cocktail. No.
That's the best final words.
There you go. No, thank you for the time. It's been great, and it's always great being back in Liechtenstein.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Big round of applause for our panelists. Thank you for joining us.